What is good, everybody? Welcome back to another episode brought to you by the League FFB. Today, what I wanted to do is I wanted to look at our 2024 fantasy football drafts, and I wanted to talk about some handcuff running backs or guys that are being labeled as handcuffs that could potentially be league winners for us down the stretch during the season. So that's what we're going to be doing today. I got 5 guys in mind. So with that being said, let's hop right into today's video and let's start talking about these running backs. So the first player on today's list is going to be Blake Corum of the Los Angeles Rams. And Blake Corum, he is the player that I am the most excited about on this list. And he should probably be plugged in here in this Rams offense as the RB2 behind Kyren Williams to start the season. He was drafted in the 3rd round of the 2024 NFL draft, so he got the draft capital that we want as well. And the depth chart behind Corum is thin. The Rams, they let free agents Darrell Henderson Jr., Cam Akers, and Royce Freeman walk headed into the 2024 season. And that's going to open up about 31% of the carries here in Los Angeles and about 3% of the receiving targets in that running back room. Now, that amount of vacated carries alone means that there will be a decent amount of work for Corum, even if Kyren Williams is healthy for the entire season, and that's a big if on Kyren Williams' health. Now, Corum, he was my running back 3 in my pre-draft rankings, and he stayed there throughout the 2024 draft process. He tallied 2,708 rushing yards and 45 touchdowns in 27 total games as a junior and a senior at Michigan, and on top of that, he showed off the ability to contribute in the pass catching game if needed. Now, that type of touchdown upside is intriguing for Blake Corum in this offense because last year when inside the red zone, the 10 zone, and the 5 zone, the Rams, they ran the football a total of 46 times, resulting in 14 touchdowns, which was top 5 in the NFL last year. And what this means is when the Rams got into the red zone, they were looking to score, and more specifically, they were looking to score on the ground, and that's one of Blake Corum's specialties. Now, it is also worth mentioning that the Rams are projected to have the 7th easiest running back schedule this season in current preseason rankings. And don't confuse the Blake Corum love with a Kyren Williams fade. I really like Kyren Williams this year too, but if Kyren Williams were to go down, which he has before, and if he were to miss any time during the 2024 season, Blake Corum has true league-winning type of upside, especially in this Rams offense that features their running back. Now, moving on to the second guy on this list, I want to talk about Jaleel McLaughlin, the running back for the Denver Broncos. And Jaleel went under the radar in the early parts of 2023 after he went undrafted in the 2023 NFL draft. But once he got to Broncos training camp, he started to earn some of the trust from Sean Payton, and he did find himself getting some decent work in this offense by about week 4 of the NFL season. Now, that being said, Jaleel, he didn't perform much for us last year, really only giving us 2 weeks as a running back 2 or better for our fantasy football teams, but both of those weeks were when he saw 35% or more of the snaps, and in both of those weeks, he finished as a running back 1. Now, I have Jaleel still as a handcuff because I think Javonte Williams, he is going to get the first crack at this job being a year healthier from that ACL tear, but McLaughlin, he feels like the clear running back 2 in this offense, and Sean Payton has continuously talked about how this is going to be a battle for playing time in this backfield and how this is still an open competition. One of the things that I think makes McLaughlin so interesting to me outside of the uncertainty in Denver is the fact that he was deemed a dual threat running back coming into the NFL, and he has a lot of solid pass catching ability. And in 2023, the running back position accounted for 32% of the Denver Broncos total target, which was the highest in the NFL. Because Sean Payton, he's shown us before that he loves to get his running backs the football in the passing game, going back to his Alvin Kamara Saints days, but this makes McLaughlin a potential PPR monster if Javonte Williams gets hurt again or if he disappoints and if McLaughlin starts seeing a decent amount of that work. Now, especially because he will be playing against a top 5 easiest schedule in 2024 for running backs as well. Now, you can draft Jaleel McLaughlin right now in your fantasy football drafts in the 14th round according to current sleeper ADP. And with that low of draft cost, I think he is a no-brainer pick for you on your fantasy football teams. And if for some reason it doesn't work out, if Javonte does become a bell cow or if Jaleel McLaughlin just doesn't get onto the field, you can cut him early in the season and move on from him because the cost was so cheap. Now, the third player I want to talk about is going to be Trey Benson of the Arizona Cardinals. And Trey Benson, he was in consideration for the running back 1 in the 2024 NFL draft, and the NFL draft capital showed us he was for NFL teams too, being drafted as the running back 2 in the class. Now, he should immediately plug in behind James Conner as the running back 2 in 2024 for the Arizona Cardinals and potentially the long-term starter here in Arizona. And Benson has the perfect size to play the NFL running back position and has true 3-down potential with his pass catching ability, especially on wheels, screens, and underneath route. Those traits combined with the draft capital and opportunity in front of him make him the running back with the highest ADP on today's list. And looking at this Cardinals roster, there should be no competition for Benson in this backfield, as all of the other options behind him are Amari DiMercado, Michael Carter, DJ Dallas, and Tony Jones, none of which have the talent that Trey Benson has. With Kyler Murray back on the field this year full-time, we should see a much more efficient running game from Arizona. We already saw some of the effects of this last year when James Conner went from averaging 78.8 total yards per game and 0.4 touchdowns per game without Kyler to an average of 101.4 total yards per game and scoring 7 touchdowns in 8 games with Kyler Murray on the field. Now, I'm a big fan of James Conner's outlook this year, especially when you consider the draft cost and him being drafted in the 6th round of fantasy football drafts. And by no means do I think that Trey Benson is going to supplant a healthy James Conner in this offense. But let's just be honest here. James Conner hasn't necessarily been a beacon of health throughout his career, so there is a chance that Trey Benson can find himself as the running back 1 for the Cardinals sooner rather than later if James Conner goes down. But even if that doesn't happen, I do think Trey Benson can have a role in this offense. But if Conner goes down, this offense is going to be electric, and we're talking about a true league winner. Now, the next guy on this list is going to be Chase Brown of the Cincinnati Bengals. And the Cincinnati Bengals, they decided to move on from long-term starter Joe Mixon this offseason, who did account for 67% of the Bengals carries and 11% of their targets in 2023. And this is going to leave behind a massive opportunity for these Bengals running backs to try and take over. Now, Chase Brown was drafted in the 5th round of the 2023 draft, and as a rookie, he kind of worked his way into some touches in this backfield, going from 1.7% snap share in week 1, steadily improving week after week to a final 28.3% high later in the year. Now, I know the Bengals, they signed free agent running back Zach Moss this offseason to a 2-year, $8 million deal, but Zach Moss hasn't necessarily been good in fantasy outside of a very small sample size stretch in 2023 when he was filling in for an injured Jonathan Taylor. And it seems like the Bengals also want to be cautious with Moss because the contract really is just a prove-it deal with a potential to get out of this contract in 2025 for minimal dead cap if Zach Moss disappoints. Now, this makes it more likely that the Bengals will give both of their backs touches and let one of these guys go out and win the job. Moss profiles as the better early down grinder and Brown profiles as the better pass catcher, so Brown may be the pick that you want to make in drafts if you play in a PPR league, especially because Brown is going almost 2 full rounds later in drafts than Zach Moss currently is. Now, we already know that this Bengals offense profiles to be one of the highest scoring offenses in the NFL this year, and with the departure of Joe Mixon and Tyler Boyd, I do actually expect them to be a little bit more pass heavy this year than they have in years past. So if you're looking for an ambiguous backfield where you want to throw a dart on one of these guys and you maybe want the guy who has more PPR appeal, I think Brown is a very solid gamble to take a chance on in your fantasy football draft. And now the 5th and final guy we will talk about in today's video is going to be Jaylen Wright, rookie running back for the Miami Dolphins. And I get it, the main event here in Miami is going to be that duo of Devon Achane and Raheem Mostert. So this one is a little bit riskier than the others we've talked about today, but the upside is still tremendous with a pick like Jaylen Wright. Last season, the Miami Dolphins, they were a top 5 rushing offense in rushing yards and yards per carry, and Mike McDaniel has created an incredibly efficient backfield full of athletes, and Jaylen Wright fits right into that mold. Wright was drafted in the 4th round of the 2024 NFL Draft, and from the outside looking in, he feels like the eventual replacement for Raheem Mostert as he ages out of the NFL. And we know Devon Achane, he missed time due to injury in 2023, and Raheem Mostert has missed time on numerous occasions throughout his career, so if either of these guys go down during the season, I expect Wright to be a plug-and-play option in this monstrous backfield of fantasy football production. Not to mention, Raheem Mostert had his tremendous touchdown season where he saw 33 10-zone touches for the Dolphins, which I assume will go down and trickle down to the other running backs on this roster, and Wright would profile as the bigger back to take on some of those goal line touches if Mostert missed time. And as a cherry on top, the Miami Dolphins also have the easiest running back schedule in the NFL this year in those preseason ranks. So in the 12th round, if you want to gamble on maybe a Mostert or an Achane injury, and you just want to buy into a highly efficient rushing offense, you can draft Jaylen Wright and hold him throughout the season to wait for that opportunity to pop up, and that may be a solid move if you have the bench space to do that, because I promise you, if anything happens to Raheem Mostert or Devon Achane, Jaylen Wright will be one of the most talked about, highly anticipated waiver wire pickups of probably the entire season. So maybe you should just draft the guy and beat the waivers early on. So there you have it. There's 5 running back handcuffs, or guys being deemed as handcuffs, that might have the ability to help you win your league and beat your opponents. If you did like today's video, go ahead and hit that like button for us down below. It is the best free way to show this channel some support, and it really does mean a lot to us. Also, if you guys are not already, please consider subscribing to this channel. It is the best way to continue to get great advice to help you guys beat your league mates as we talk about dynasty leagues, redraft leagues, best ball leagues, all things fantasy football and NFL throughout the entirety of the season. And if you want direct access for help with your drafts or anything fantasy football related, I strongly suggest to go join our free Discord. We do have a free Discord linked in the description. And like I said, free to join. There is no risk in doing that. We have an awesome community of people, and they're there to help you with your fantasy football rosters as well. But with all of those things out of the way, I have nothing else for you guys today. So I will see you guys on our next video, where we go for a live stream drafting another fantasy football team. Hopefully you guys will be on that stream with us, and hopefully you will be able to participate on that stream with us. But as I said, I'll see you guys on our next one. And until then, peace out.